Welcome to Prime Suspects. Alongside Adam Bjorn and Prime Sports co-founder Joe Brennan Jr., I'm your host, Matt Landis. Not the way any of us envisioned kicking off episode number 100, but for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see where a couple of us are going with our matching team shirts and hats. We'd be bearing the lead not to acknowledge the passing of Dave Sharapan on Saturday night and the simultaneously heartwarming and heartbreaking announcement his family posted on Twitter on Sunday. So as we toast episode 100, more importantly, going to be a bigger toast to Dave. And Joe, I'd like to lead off with you because back in June, you spoke beautifully off the cuff about Dave and his battle with cancer. So as we get this toast ready, 3 months later, tell us what you're drinking to send him off and how you choose to remember Dave, his impact on the industry, and his even greater impact beyond sports betting.
So Dave Sharapan he was a character. He was a character you couldn't write. He had a personality as big as the sun. And, when I got the text from Matt yesterday morning, before even 8 a.m. here on the East Coast, I figured it could not be good news. And so when I read through it and he said that David passed, I just thought it couldn't be more terrible for Jess and the girls right now because, more so than anything about what Dave meant to the industry, Dave just lived for his family, and you just saw it. It permeated everything he did. He talked, loud and often about his family. And so I couldn't be more heartbroken for them right now. For the industry, there's very few genuine characters. There's a lot of people who try and act. They put on an act. They try and sell themselves as big personalities. Dave was one of the few genuine articles. He knew this industry. He knew it from behind the counter. He knew it from betting. He knew the whole thing. So he was a legitimate guy. And to see a guy, like a five-tool guy in our industry with the personality to match, that everybody knew and whose personality just genuinely would fill up a room, a podcast, whatever, I couldn't be sadder today. The only thing that I hope is that people will go back, and because Dave is essentially preserved in history, all of his podcast experiences, all of his videos, everything. I hope the people who might, unfortunately, only now be hearing about him have a chance to go back and see what a great personality Dave was. And so we're all going to be in Vegas in a couple of weeks, and the place is frankly going to be a little less now that Dave isn't going to be there.
Tough to follow up on that with some sort of transition other than the best way I can think of to honor Dave would be a connection to another Dave from Western Pennsylvania, whom we lost too soon, and my dear friend, and a dear friend to many other sports bettors as well, and David Malinsky. When Dave Malinsky passed away in 2018, I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support from people across walks of life, with a common sentiment that Dave could speak on any topic with anybody at any level. And that ability to genuinely relate to people of all stripes was Dave Malinsky's superpower. And I don't think I'd seen anybody come close to matching it until 5 years later when I got my chance to meet Dave Sharapan. And Joe and Adam, usually you guys are behind any E ratings this show may have, but today I'll wear that label because as much as Dave Sharapan loved to say nobody knows shit, and in more ways than I could count, I could not agree more with that sentiment. He was an exception in the sense that he knew his shit, especially when it came to cutting through the shit and telling it like it was with a uniquely potent blend of honesty and humor that always left you feeling better somehow. So with that, Adam, want to bring you in as well. What does the name Dave Sharapan mean to you?
Well, I think he experienced it all. He did his time offshore. He did his time at the books in Vegas. I'd sort of seen of him and knew of him for many, many years. It was more when we started doing BVV last year and then having a few dinners in Vegas and stuff like that. I got to know him more and learn, more about his history, and we'd sort of traveled some similar paths. So, yeah, it's a shame for anyone, especially again, who's that much older than myself and kids and all those kind of things. These kind of things hit home of what it's all about.
Well, guys, we were planning to toast episode 100 off the top. We can still do that with an even bigger toast to Dave. Joe, I know you got something special on him, so tell us about that.
So, for you big boys out there, this is Middleton's Very Rare. It's the best Irish whiskey on the planet. Feel free to disagree with me. You'll be wrong. Anyway, I keep a bottle of that around for only the special occasions, and was looking forward to doing this for our 100th show. But I think it's probably more important that we toast Dave, farewell and nothing but the best for his family, Jessica and the girls. So, sláinte.
All right, and with a Yingling in hand on my end. Cheers to you guys. Well said, Joe. Cheers to Dave Sharapan.
Who definitely does the hat and jersey thing much better than me.
Oh, much better than all of us. Yeah, that was unparalleled. And I think before I even needed to see that he was from Pittsburgh, the first time I recall meeting him at Bet Bash, he was decked out. Sam Peniatovich had a joke that he looked like he was about to go play third base for the Pirates because it was head to toe in Pittsburgh Pirates gear. And I know the Pirates aren't having the best season right now, but I do think it's fitting that as a Pittsburgh native,
that's the last 30 years. So
the Steelers did steal a game. They had little business winning against the Patriots on Sunday, and I'll use that to try to nudge this toward a productive first segment. Go ahead, Joe.
Real quick note on that. When I did hear from Matt Peralt, his partner in crime at Boston versus the Book, Matt noted that yesterday was going to be the Steelers versus the Patriots. Matt is a big Patriots fan. Obviously, Dave, huge Pittsburgh fan. So yeah, Dave got snuck in one last victory over the Patriots before shuffling off this mortal coil. So congratulations to him, and also just 1,000 condolences to Matt. I know that Dave was kind of like the yin to his yang, and I know this must be really tough for him as well right now. So if you guys have a chance, please reach out and let Matt know just how much you appreciated everything that those guys did together.
Very well said. And with no easy transition again from this type of subject to games being played on the field, Adam, I will go ahead and check in with you because from that Mike Tomlin voodoo striking again and the Eagles delivering what might go down as the bad beat of the season for those who had the Rams plus the points in pocket, to the Browns' improbable comeback win over the Packers and utter chaos in the Jets-Bucks endgame. How did the NFL's wild Week 3 in-game swings play out across Prime Sports and BetCris?
Well, it played out just like that. It was wild. It was up and down all day long. I mean, the Browns was the good result of the day, and the rest of them, Jets ended up coming back. That wasn't good. Philly coming back, no good there. It was everything that, and then our big game of the day was actually the Jags and Texans. That one went the wrong way. But all in all, once we sort of looked at the numbers at the end of the week and the end of the day, it wasn't that bad. So, got through it. I think the Browns was kind of ultimately the ones that really delivered. And considering how that, the first week letting us down with the missed field goal, whatnot, and then to come, I'd sort of turned away from that game, 10-10, ball down there. I just expected the 13-10 result was the Packers, and then went back 15 minutes later and actually got a message from someone saying, well, I really wanted you to win that bet. And he'd backed Cleveland with us to, do some positioning elsewhere. And I was like, no, that was our best result of the day. So it was a big surprise on that score as I was concentrating on other things. But it was all over the place Sunday. It was up and down, and it was just, hang on and ride it out and see what the results were at the end of the day. But all in all, it was all right. We got through it.
And Joe, you had the astute reminder for us last week that while football's back, it's far from the only item on the sports betting calendar these days. So from pro and college football to baseball's pennant races approaching a fever pitch, what stood out to you this past weekend?
Well, as you might imagine, the Phillies not exactly covering themselves with glory in this most recent road trip.
For those listening in podcast form, if you can hop onto YouTube via the link in the show notes and check out Joe's Phillies jersey, the hat, it's going to be no secret where his rooting interest lies come the postseason.
No, it's interesting. You see the teams wrapping up their divisions, and then now there's still something to play for, which is that first round bye for the top 2 seeded teams. But, if you look at what happened last year with those teams, they all lost. And so to the point you had Bryce Harper having to actually answer questions saying, like, of course I want time off, and try and convince people that would actually be a good thing. It will be interesting. Clearly the Brewers are going to get the top seed. I think the Phillies are probably in there for the number 2 seed in the National League. But it's interesting to see how bettors are going to line this up. I mean, like, let's face it, like, there's so many little trends that you could follow on this if you wanted to. But, there also at the same time, I don't expect, like last year we did well, if I recall. But once we hit the postseason, our baseball handle, because we were mostly dealing with sharp guys, dropped off substantially on baseball. So it'd be interesting to see how it hits prime versus how it hits the recreational books. I mean, the recreational books, right now, it's interesting, they're going to have to be touting October baseball at the same time you're going to have the opening up of the basketball seasons and also hockey. So, I mean, just a smorgasbord of sports to be hitting here shortly.
And with that, we will move on to another water cooler segment, and perhaps to the surprise of no one, another look at the latest in prediction markets. Adam, this past week, it was reported that UK betting exchange Matchbook plans to enter the US under the CFTC framework in partnership with Rizbix. Matchbook may be a foreign name to American bettors, both literally and figuratively, but they do have a lot of credibility, as does UK exchange Smarkets, which is also reportedly pursuing CFTC approval. So compared to Kalshi, what would you expect to see a Matchbook or Smarkets prediction market do differently? And how competitive do you think they can be in the US?
As I've always said, for me, exchanges and that are a race to the bottom. I mean, Matchbook's been participating. Matchbook has been feeding some of these exchanges that already exist or the mechanics behind it. So it's not like it's new. The liquidity is seen in the space already. I mean, adding more in doesn't necessarily mean it's better when it comes to this, when they're generally all the same. They're all, trying to have the same groups liquidate the markets. So now you're spreading thin those liquid markets into, various places. Now it comes onto their technology to make sure, they get their fill in one place. They don't necessarily want to overfill in other places. I think it was really an odd weekend where suddenly all these surprising things popped up about Kalshi self-funding and liquidating their markets. What the fuck you think exchanges are? Like the house has to feed them to give liquidity. Like this has been happening for the last 20, 25 years. That's what Betfair did. That's what Matchbook's done. That's what BetDAC did. Like that's what an exchange is. They're feeding the liquidity to be able to get people to buy on the other side. So I guess the more the merrier in some spots, but then again, a spread thin who's actually making the markets because it's generally, a handful or so going behind Sport Trade, going behind Kalshi, going behind Polymarket and all these kind of things. So, I don't think this is necessarily where more is better, but it's the same stuff. They're going to be up, penny margins, similar markets across the board. If anything, the people that win are the arbors or the ones that are really shopping around for prices and getting their spots. The syndicates, the big boys, all those kind of things. It's, same shit, different day kind of thing when you come to these exchanges. It just adds another piece to the puzzle to go shopping for the bettors. And yes, they are bettors. They're not contract sellers.
And Joe, perhaps in keeping pretty tightly with that sentiment, Sportico reported on the existence of a trading arm of the Kalshi business, buying and selling contracts on the exchange. And this would seem to contradict Kalshi's argument that it's different from traditional sportsbooks on the basis of being peer-to-peer and that it doesn't have any stake in the outcomes of events. How do you reconcile this?
You don't. But this is what happens when you have an absence of regulation. And it'll continue to happen. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. Like, one, it's been past practice on exchanges, as Adam pointed out. So it's, if you know the industry, well, this isn't an unusual practice. We have a few notable names that have been using exchanges to kind of softly enter the business the way, like, for instance, Susquehanna is always the name that everybody mentions. I think the difficulty comes in that Kalshi's being very loud right now about how they're not sports betting, while then running ads that say, hey, bet on sports. Or, God, who thought it was a good idea to say, hey, we're going to have a college ambassadors program? Kalshi, for them, it's a land grab, and they're going to try and grab every last inch of the land they can while everybody else tries to follow them into the marketplace. But it does start to kind of undercut their rhetoric a good bit when they're talking about what their differentiation is between a sports book and then their exchanges. And then it turns out that there's really no substantive difference whatsoever because they're participating in that market. Also, somebody at Kalshi, please stop trying to describe how sports books work. You're either ignorant And you don't know how sports books work if you truly believe that stuff that you're saying and that you're writing, or you're just misrepresenting it. I don't know which is a better answer for you guys, but maybe just stop that. But in the meantime, like, do I blame Kalshi for trying to use both their left and their right hand as they try and take advantage of this space that they've been given in the marketplace because CFTC has said we're going to regulate by not regulating? I guess I don't blame them one bit, but it does show how just in such a short amount of time, this industry has really kind of gone upside down world.
Well, from trying to make heads or tails of prediction markets to trying to make heads or tails of what's on tap, Adam, week 4 in the NFL brings us a few marquee matchups, including a matchup of unbeatens in the Eagles and the Bucks, the upstart and unbeaten Colts at the nearly unbeaten Rams, and a matchup between two teams that don't have winning records as we record this on Monday afternoon, but that may well make a Super Bowl run in Ravens Chiefs. So what are you seeing so far in the biggest matchups on the slate, as well as any noteworthy movement in games that you might not yet be captivating a larger audience?
So Ravens Chiefs, I'm not actually seeing any lines right now, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, probably the Monday night with Baltimore, Detroit.
Yeah, but usually, those games are up at least until sort of kickoff of what that game is. So I don't know, that's a little weird. I'll have to give them a kick in the ass and get those numbers up. But the games we're seeing the big action is Dallas and Green Bay, seeing good two-way action. Tennessee and Houston, oddly enough, also getting good action both ways. Panthers, Patriots is another one. The big mover of the week is so far Minnesota. Have gone from 1 to 3.5, and it's all sort of one-way action there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's early days. Colts, Rams is getting some decent actions, more Colts than Rams right now. But, there's actually been surprising some of these games getting really, really good two-way action early in the piece and not big movements. You're sure if you move 2 or 3 points, sometimes you find the sweet spot and it comes back the other way. But this is sort of getting good action both ways without any of that enticement. And unlike last week where Monday just seemed to be just teaser day, where it was just, relentless amounts of money on teasers. And thankfully, again, the Browns kind of blew that all up. Yeah, it's just sort of the straight bets coming in right now.
And in the vein of teasers, I've been experimenting this season with excluding them from my portfolio altogether for the first 4 weeks, maybe leaving some meat on the bone there. But I feel like in the last few years, as far as I can recall, the first month has been brutal for teasers. And you kind of want to lean into market efficiency, give it until about week 5, and at least we have a better sense of what teams are. From the other side of the counter, what's your purview on booking teasers, if there's any difference in your book, weeks 1, 2, and 3 versus later on in the season, when again, we have a better grasp of what these teams actually are?
Yeah, the number's just a lot sharper at the end of the season. So those teasers become, more efficient, especially there's just teams that you want to go against. There's teams that you bring down that they're likely to win the game, but maybe not cover, getting, backdoor covered, things like that. So you're sort of just playing it safe. But I think they've priced these teasers, so exorbitantly in recent years that all that value and efficiency, even when you're crossing over the key numbers and things like that, are gone to a point where the reverse teasers are the ones where there's some sort of value. Adding a third, fourth, fifth team sort of gets into it a little bit more. But yeah, 100%, the early part of the season's more erratic. The numbers are weaker, and that becomes more efficient over the course of the season. And teasers are definitely harder to beat as you get to sort of, the early teens, mid-teens weeks. The last 2 or 3 weeks can be sort of chaos as well. But between weeks, call it 8 and 14, they become pretty efficient.
And a quick 2-part follow-up for you as well on the Vikings. I think you said you opened them -1 and they're up to 3.5. How much of the action do you think you've taken so far as a percentage of handle that you'll ultimately see on that game? And when you start to get one-way action out of the gate, 3 is the key of key numbers. So how aggressive are you in moving aggressively to get action on the other side to help balance things out a little bit?
Well, they move pretty aggressively in the beginning. Again, depending who's betting it, once it popped its head up at 3.5, there was some action and bites the other way. It's sitting, I think, sort of 3, dog 20, 15 at the moment in most places, but it's minimal. I imagine that's, looking at the numbers, it's probably 10 to 15% at most of what you're going to handle in the game come weekend. So you don't get too wrapped up in it, but you just try and find that number as quickly as possible. Then you can open up the limits and just let everybody go to town.
It's almost like there's an elegant simplicity to taking sharp action and using that to get to price discovery as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, as all those ones said, the price discovery and those exchanges are just way more effective than sports books. But I feel like it only takes 10, 15 minutes to get these numbers up and you pretty much find where you want to be.
Joe, what are you going to be watching for across the sports betting landscape over the rest of the coming week?
I'll tell you what, I don't got anything on this segment. We can just move on. Obviously, cut that part.
Yeah. All right. There you go. A quick homework.
Because I'm just like, because I don't want to go off on a fucking rant about like price discovery and all the dipshits on what do you call it, prediction market Twitter, who are just like discovering price discovery. Oh god, it's like when my kids discovered the moon and they really thought they did. Like, maybe you leave this part in. I don't know.
I think perfect.
Yeah, I don't think this is getting cut anymore. We were going to cut it, and then we let you keep going, and you reeled us back in.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god.
Well, there's a nice peek behind the curtain for everybody listening. We do have one more segment in store this week, a little bonus segment commemorating our journey to episode 100. We'll go around the horn with some reflections, any memorable moments and anecdotes from the journey to our 100th show. And Adam, let's go ahead and kick that off with you.
Well, first of all, I'm amazed that we got to 100. I mean, the consistency of being able to do something every week for 2 years is pretty exceptional for me. I know we've had lots of moving and bouncing times based on travel and everything else. I think, the feedback's been pretty good. The people that do listen, the 10 to 15 of them, seem to get their nuggets each week and get to sort of hear what's going on and, get me and Joe going back and forth at times. And then Matt's just been the, perfect orchestrator of this sort of bouncing us back and forth along the way. So, yeah, would have thought there was zero chance, and nothing's ever zero chance when we started this out to get sort of 2 years in. But, it's been a lot of fun and a lot of different topics, interesting moments. And yeah, maybe we can get another 100 more.
Yeah, count me in for that, because I am still just as thrilled to spend time with you guys for episode 100 as I was for episode number 1. I will admit a hefty degree of imposter syndrome still persists, but any chance I get to connect with both of you and really learn right alongside much of our audience, courtesy of your remarkable contributions to our shared passion in sports betting, I'll take that chance with immense gratitude, no questions asked. And Joe, you were probably going to take the last word anyway, and frankly, you've earned it. So go ahead and take us home.
I don't know. I earned it. I don't know shit compared to Maximus there, but no, Matt, it's been amazing that you've been there also if you said, hey, Joe, Adam, can we get you to express your opinion once a week, every week for 100 weeks? I don't think you'd have I'm pretty sure you get Adam and I to express our opinion about stuff for 24 hours straight if we wanted to, if that was what was on the table. So I don't know that that's necessarily a problem, but the fact that you've been able to be the lion tamer and stand in there without a whip and a chair between the two of us, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know if you're going to be able to do it from the get-go, and you've done an admirable job of standing in the cage with us.
Thank you.
So to our, tens, dozens maybe of listeners, I know we have a small but dedicated audience, one of which was the late Dave Sharapan, which tells you when people like that are popping up and they say, I listen to every episode, and then they can there's plenty of people tell you I listen to your podcast and they can't tell you a goddamn thing about it, but Dave could, and there's other people out there, some of them are regulators. So sometimes I'm wondering just who are we going to get ourselves in trouble with this week, but it's been remarkable. Two things stand out to me is how much actually the industry in a very short amount of time has changed. When we first started 2 years ago, Prime was launching in Ohio, and we were quibbling about like, oh, look at that. Ohio just doubled our taxes on us, raising it from 10 to 20. Who knew that was merely going to be the starting bell for a wave of things that I don't necessarily think have been positive for the industry, including the industry has gotten to a point where somehow conventional sports betting just doesn't seem to have the spotlight right now. We're the biggest thing out there. And yet, we should have brought to you by Kalshi stamped on our goddamn foreheads every week. And then you look at today, the news in the Wall Street Journal, Prize Picks, DFS Plus, a deal that could be worth up to $2.5 billion eventually, and they're being sold. So it apparently, even though sports betting has expanded during our time on here, the universe can't seem to expand rapidly enough. And so all these other alternative models seem to keep popping up, and, watching not only the industry try and keep pace, but us as topics of conversation. That's another thing altogether. But if I was going to name my single favorite moment, and it's coming.
Starlust.
Starlust. Starlust. Starlust. Come, Starlust. Get through. Get through, Starlust. Yes. You fucking ripper. Come on, baby. Yes, sir. Booyah.
Watching our humble, companion from Australia still be the enthusiastic, gritty bettor when he was watching his horse come in during, what was it, the Breeders' Cup? And I'm still waiting for the merch t-shirts on our boy going on, go, you fucking ripper. If there's one thing that's great in working with Adam is that, he comes off as kind of like that typical laconic Australian alligator blood bookmaker, but watching him be like a young, aspiring bettor, watching a horse come in has definitely been one of the more revealing moments of this podcast.
And with that, 100 episodes of Prime Suspects are in the books. To the audience, from those of you who are just joining us, to those who have been with us each step of the way, thanks as always for tuning in. And as we work toward potentially the next 100 episodes, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at @PrimeSuspects_, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn 2. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.